Okay, this is Jill Dane's final redo of the Joe Mankowski presentation. Here I have pictured Joanna and her 7 siblings. The first daughter's name is Margaret. Their second daughter is Isabella here. Then we have Eleanor. Or, excuse me, was that correct? Yes. Yep, here's Joanna. And as you can see, there is no picture of her. The next one is Alexander. Oh, excuse me. These are actually flipped. This one is Mary. And the 6th one is Alexander. Alexander died in childbirth, so that's why there's no picture of him. And then we have James II, the 7th child. And the last one, Annabella. Isn't it interesting that Joanna doesn't have a picture for herself, and yet all of her siblings have their portraits here? Now we're going to go into who Joanna was and the beginning of the book that I'm going to have published. The Deaf Princess. Joanna was born in the year 1478. The 4th daughter to the king and queen. While Joanna was growing up, her family found out she was deaf and had no idea what to do. They were heartbroken that God had made her deaf. The king and queen didn't know how to help her. At that time, people believed that deafness was a punishment, that the parents had done something that caused God to punish her and be born deaf. The king and queen summoned priests, magicians, and witches, but nothing cured that deafness. Her siblings did not try to communicate with her. She was always alone, with no brothers or sisters to comfort her. The queen knew that she was upset and gave her a baby foal named Blackcoat and a cat called Green Eyes. For my story, I'd actually changed the name to Whitey because of his white coloring. After she got the pets, she was happy again. She loved her horse so much. She called him Blackcoat because of his black coloring. Isn't that sweet, guys? I can see the tears, they're starting up. Every day she would ride around the fields on Blackcoat, enjoying their time together. She was never alone when she had her pets with her. While Joanna was growing up, her parents discussed who would be to marry her. Which prince would marry a deaf princess? Finding someone that would be able to communicate with someone who was deaf was a challenge. Here I actually have pictured Joan Beaufort and her husband, King James I. Of course, at that time, they didn't have kilts back then. Kilt in Scotland didn't appear until the 1800s. Have you guys seen the movie Braveheart? Have you seen that already? Just so you know, that's not historically accurate. The kilts in that movie weren't supposed to show up until later. Or how about the movie Brave, that Disney movie? Yeah? That is also inaccurate. Kilts for both of those movies still hadn't actually shown up back then. They weren't present back at that time. So again, the parents tried to hire a tutor to teach her how to speak. But after many attempts, everything was to no avail. How could Joanna make a good wife when she couldn't speak with her husband? Even though it was a challenge, they still loved Joanna and cared for her and kept her around. The end.